The Anaheim Ducks. And this is a club I could see being my team that I'm going to look to for the big step, the same way I did with Vancouver a year ago.
Oh, God. Let's call Pat Verbeek. Call Pat Verbeek and warn him if you're doing this.
Yeah, because he may not come on again. But you got to take a good look at what they've done during the course of the offseason. Bringing in Chris Kreider to trade with the New York Rangers. Center Ryan Poehling comes in a deal that sent Trevor Zegras to the Philadelphia Flyers. They acquire goaltender Peter Mrazek in a trade with Detroit that sent longtime netminder John Gibson to the Red Wings. And they also signed Mikael Granlund as a UFA from the Dallas Stars for 3 years at an average of $7 million per year. Kreider slated for the second line, Granlund for the third line, Poehling for the fourth line. And they are filling in a lot of pieces here among the players that they hold on to. Goaltender Ville Husso was re-signed by the Ducks. He will be the backup to Lucas Dostal, who signs for 5 years and $6.5 million. And Drew Helleson stays on defense. He's a third pair defender, voided arbitration, both him and Dostal. So in the bigger picture of things here, you look at these players that have been acquired, that have been held on to. They lose Zegras, they lose Gibson. And I still think this is a club, when you look at the veteran adds, the veteran existence, and the youth on this team, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism in Anaheim.
I think there is reason for optimism, and I think Pat Verbeek is turned this thing around nicely. We would have said two to 3 years ago that automatic, basically, that they're not going to be, and I don't think it's automatic that they won't make it this year. I think they could cause a lot of noise. But having said that, they got 3 pretty good lines to come at you with Gauthier, Carlson, Kaloran, Chris Kreider with McTavish and Terry. They got Vetrano, who shoots the puck 100 times a game, with Ryan Strome and Mikael Granlund. That's a pretty good line. But where I think they really fall off, Vic, is that after Radko Gudas and Jacob Trouba, who are the rest of the defensemen? I can see who they are, but who are they?
Neil, to your point, 4 players that will make up the balance of the Ducks defense, all aged between 21 and 24. We have the 21-year-olds, Olen Zellweger and Pavel Mintyukov, and 24-year-olds Jackson LaCombe and Drew Helleson, who, as we mentioned before, was re-signed as an RFA. But I think when you look at the collective here, I like the mix with this team. And there's another young player that was selected 3rd overall in 2024. It was a bit of a surprise, but he's put up great numbers for Oshawa the last 2 years. And that's Bennett Seneka, who has put up 154 points over the last 2 campaigns. And as a junior player, a plus 57. And that included 86 points last year with the Generals. So a lot to look forward to in Anaheim.
For sure. I don't like their defense starting out the season with those young guys, because I know how long it takes young players to become good all-around NHL defensemen. But you could say they're backed up by really good goaltending in Lucas Dostal, and Peter Mrazek has his backup. So Dostal proved that he's good enough to take over the reins when they traded John Gibson, who was rumored to be traded for, it seems, forever. So we'll see what we get. If the defense can mature and overachieve, this team may have a real shot, because they are okay up front. Certainly Kreider adds to their net front presence. Ryan Strome knows him from his days with the Rangers. Mikael Granlund, we saw him in the playoffs do great stuff for the Dallas Stars, and he was really good on San Jose. Gets himself back out to California, where he must be happy to be, because he was with the Sharks and now with the Ducks. But you're right, Vic, this could be a surprise team. This team could be take people by surprise this year.
2 more points here. 1 in goal, 1 behind the bench. And don't want people thinking that we have forgotten about Joel Quenneville. But I want to talk about Lucas Dostal first, because he is now the clear-cut number 1. And he did spend a lot of time while John Gibson was hurt periodically last season. It's a lot different when you're a career backup and then you are thrust into that number 1 role. And I'm going to be very curious to see how he responds.
Yeah, because this is his first year as being the clear-cut number 1. But I really like him. I think he's going to be just fine. And Mrazek is a very experienced guy, if not as good as he once was, but certainly very experienced. And I'm sure that tandem will work well together. I have more confidence in Dostal than I have in that group of defensemen. We'll see what happens, how these young guys go. That's the unknowns, right? It's always the question marks as the young guys, because you haven't seen them enough and they haven't shown you enough to predict how they're going to play. But I do think that Pat Verbeek has, with his hiring of Joel Quenneville, has put them in position to have a good shot at a wild card spot.
So let's talk about the second winningest coach in NHL history, only behind Scotty Bowman. And we had Verbeek on earlier in the summer, and the club went through considerable vetting of Quenneville, who had been out of the league since the fall of 2021 for essentially inaction regarding the video coach with the Chicago Blackhawks when they made their run for their first of the 3 Stanley Cups last decade in 2010. I think the guidance that Quenneville can give this club, and it's not to take a shot at Rick Tocchet for his work in Vancouver last year, because he was coming off an Adams Trophy winning year, but there is something about the championship pedigree that Quenneville brings to a club that appears now ready to take that next step. Where do you see his influence on this team taking the greatest shape?
I think that he's going to be good for the young players. He was a defenseman himself. I think the relationship that he's got with Pat Verbeek that we talked about when Pat Verbeek was on, that goes all the way back to when they played on the Whalers together. I think that's really important. I think that he can have an influence all over the club. He has shown that he can get players to overachieve and win championships. We're not even close to that with Anaheim, but I think he'll have a positive impact throughout the organization with his experience.
Certainly a team to look for to push for the playoffs in the spring of 2026.